There is the famous quote from the Wizard of Oz that goes, "Lions and tigers and bears, oh my." Well, the BYU football program added two of the three of that statement this past weekend via the transfer portal. What are the chances they add the third?
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. I'm Jake Hatch, executive producer at the KSL Sports Zone and 13-year credentialed media member at BYU. I am your resident BYU expert and insider. And, of course, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. And as always, thank you to all of you who are everydayers that's right here on your original daily podcast focused on all things BYU. And today's show, it is brought to you by our friends over at Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the promo code Locked On College at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. All right, coming up on today's show, we're going to dig in to Tiger and Bear Bachmeier, who are the new additions to the BYU football program from this past weekend. Then we'll also talk about the chances of a Lion, a.k.a. Ryder Lyons. Could he join the fray at some point this summer as well for the BYU Cougars? So without further ado, let's dive in. I want to start off on the quarterback front, and that brings us to Bear Bachmeier. Now, Bear is a guy who BYU recruited pretty heavily out of high school. They absolutely thought that he was a player they would love to have in this program. He ultimately opted to commit to Stanford, where his brother Tiger was playing at the time. We'll get to Tiger here in just a minute, but Bear enrolled early at Stanford, and when Troy Taylor was fired by the Stanford Cardinal, well, he decided he was better suited to look elsewhere because Troy Taylor was the coach he wanted to play for. So he entered his transfer portal, and BYU hopped in the mix right away. The interesting dynamic to all of this is that Bear and his brother Tiger, based on the reporting I saw, had the do not contact tag associated with their name in the transfer portal. What that means is they are requesting that schools do not reach out to them even though they're in the transfer portal. That means, for the layman's terms, that they have an idea of where they want to end up. And from what I understand, Bear made a very quick decision that he wanted to visit BYU, wanted to get a feel for what BYU, Aaron Roderick is his position coach and offensive coordinator, meet up with Kalani Sitake and see what Brigham Young University could do for him. And ultimately decided to pull the trigger. That report came from Pete Thamel on Saturday morning. And big addition for BYU, because the one thing about Bear is that he fills out BYU's quarterback room for this coming season. Obviously, Jake Retzloff is the incumbent. There would have to something absolutely horrific happen for him not to start this coming year as a senior for the BYU football program. Then behind him, you now have McKay Hillstead, Trayson Bourget, the aforementioned Bear Bachmeier, and Emerson Geilman. Coming up in the spring of 2026, three of those quarterbacks will be in the mix. You're saying, well, there's five, Jake. Who are the three that will remain in the mix? Well, Jake Retzloff ultimately will move on, whether that's via the professional ranks or whatever he decides to do next after he has eligibility expires. But then also Emerson Geilman will be going on a mission. He's going to spend this season with BYU and then go on a mission in the winter. So that leaves Bear Bachmeier to compete with McKay Hillstead as well as Trayson Bourget as the guys who, in theory, are going to be the heir apparent to Jake Retzloff. Now, the transfer portal ultimately could yield another body or two, and BYU also will be getting Enoch Watson back from the mission field as well this coming winter. Could he factor into the mix as quickly as it might take for him coming off a mission? TBD on that front. But the bigger point to be made here is that Bear Bachmeier, he is a really solid ad for BYU. And if you watch his highlight reel from high school, because that's all we really have to go off of, he went to Stanford and spent essentially spring ball there on the farm, as they like to call it, in Palo Alto, and then hit the transfer portal. There were reports that emerged, though, that during spring ball, he had shown enough that he was going to be the backup quarterback this coming season. That shows that he's got a lot of skill. If you look at his highlight reel, though, there's a reason why he wears the number 47. And that alone sets him apart, because as our good friend BYU Statsman mentioned, the last time a BYU quarterback had worn the number outside of 1 through 19 and essentially had stats. I think it's a touchdown pass. Goes back all the way back to 1952. I remember the name off the top of my head, but shows you it's been a minute since BYU's had a quarterback who wears a unique number like Bear does. But as he has mentioned multiple times in media interviews, the reason why he wears that number is his dad told him when you cross the line of scrimmage, you essentially become a fullback, a running back. You essentially become everything that a football player is meant to be. And he approaches that game that way. I'm going to invoke the name Taysom Hill when I look at what Bear Bachmeier can do as a quarterback. Now, Taysom, much like Bear, was more of an athlete playing quarterback at the high school level and then ultimately evolved into what he is today in the NFL and ultimately at BYU, where he became more of a true quarterback. Had elite athleticism. There's no doubt about it when it comes to Taysom, and I see shades of that in Bear Bachmeier. I will say this about Bear, though. I think Bear has the more refined arm that Taysom had both in high school and even during his time at BYU. Taysom always had a howitzer. He could unleash a ball and hurl it 50-plus yards, no problem. The problem was, at times, the accuracy was a little bit awry, and that ultimately caused some issues for him, and not to mention the multiple season-ending injuries that he suffered while he was at BYU. But looking at what Bear offers, you can't teach what he has. He's 6'2", listed at 225 pounds, and that is pretty elite for a guy who's 18, 19 years old and has got a lot of time on his side because he is, like I said, a freshman still, has 4 years of eligibility, and is coming to BYU to show what he's capable of. And if you look at his offer list throughout his recruiting process, we're talking about Miami, Michigan, Notre Dame, Oregon, just the who's who, Texas A&M, Utah did offer him, Washington State. Like, he had offers up and down the list of the who's who of college football. Now, he ultimately picked Stanford because he wanted to get an elite education, obviously. And we'll talk about his brother Tiger, who is a certified genius momentarily. But I think the thing about what you bring with Bear Bachmeier is he will come in and he'll have to get up to speed because guys like McKay Hillstead and Trayson Bourget, they've got a full year's head start in this system, speaking of what BYU runs offensively, and they'll be trying to fend him off. But the physical talents, the tools that Bear Bachmeier brings, there's a reason why he was a 4-star prospect. And I get there's some consternation about him being downgraded from a 4-star talent as a high schooler to a 3-star transfer. Here's the deal. There are a myriad of different explanations that I could go into on it, but simply put, Aaron Roderick and BYU believe in Bear Bachmeier's talent. There's a reason why a number of other programs of national renown believed in his talent as well. And if those skills are there, he is going to surpass being a 3-star talent. I say this often on this podcast for those of you who are everydayers. BYU takes 3-star guys and gets 4- and 5-star production out of them. Well, if a guy like Bear Bachmeier, if he's more of what they think is a 3-star transfer, if he becomes a 4- or 5-star production type player, BYU fans, you're not going to be complaining one bit down the line. And the nice part is you can tell this young man had interest in BYU and he wants to put on for the Cougars. And I, for one, I cannot wait to see the number 47 lining up under center. That is going to take some getting used to. I've seen a number 7. I've seen a number 4. In fact, Taysom Hill wore those 2 numbers while he was at BYU. But to put them together and have the same guy wear those 2 numbers while playing quarterback, that will be a unique look for BYU. But I think the physical tools, the pedigree, everything is there for a guy like Bear Bachmeier to come in and make an impression for BYU. And I'm looking forward to seeing him as a member of the BYU football program. Well, he is the Bear. Who is the Tiger? Well, what does Tiger Bachmeier bring to the table? Well, the one thing I can tell you, he's got proven production at the Power 4 level, and you cannot discount that as he comes in competing for playing time with the BYU Cougars. We'll delve into him next right here on the podcast. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Monarch Money. Now, Monarch Money is here for you guys to get you up to speed whenever you need to take care of your finances. A lot of us have this moment time after time. It seems like where did all my money go? Well, between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, among a myriad of other things, it's easy to lose track of that money. That's where Monarch Money comes in as your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. The best part is it's not just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center, and you can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building actual wealth. The best part is instead of juggling multiple apps, you use Monarch Money to check your finances, track your spending, and even plan those long-term goals, whether it's saving for retirement, saving for a college fund, a big trip. No matter what it is, Monarch can help you along the way. So take control of your finances today and do it with our friends at Monarch Money. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, promo code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over at Post District. It is the home to 4 of Salt Lake's newest and most stylish apartment buildings. They are called The Register, Post House North, Post House South, and 801 Flats. Each residence has its own unique take on luxury urban living. They got features like waterfall kitchen islands, floor-to-ceiling windows, vaulted ceilings, and spacious patios, along with walk-in closets. And the best part is, besides that, inside your home, they also have premium amenities, including the city's largest residential gym, a year-round pool, golf simulator, massive TV wall for sports watch parties or otherwise, and more, all anchored in a one-of-a-kind community. Step outside and find yourself immersed in Salt Lake's hottest dining and nightlife scene, award-winning spots nearby like Urban Hill, Men's Show Ramen, Level Crossing, and Sunday's Best, literally just steps away, my friends. So whether you're looking for a studio, a 1, 2, or 3 bedroom, or even a penthouse, find your perfect home today with our friends over at Post District. Visit liveatpost.com or call 801-590-6247. Mention Locked On Cougars when you call for an exclusive incentive from our friends at Post District. Once again, visit them at liveatpost.com or call today, 801-590-6247. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. If you have not done so already, please subscribe, rate, and review the show wherever you're listening to it, whether it's on YouTube, you're watching it, or if you're listening to it on Spotify or Apple or a myriad of different apps out there. Make sure you do your part and help us build the audience. We've had a really, really good year so far, but like to keep that going, and obviously share it with your family and friends. If they don't know about this, it's daily BYU content. Let them know that they can check it out wherever they get their podcasts. All right, let's talk about Tiger Bachmeier. Now, we talked about Bear and what he brings because there's a whole lot of potential in him. Well, the nice part is you don't have to worry about potential with Tiger because he is produced at the Power 4 level. He's played the past 2 years at Stanford, and the best part is he has shown that he's very capable as a wide receiver, but also in special teams as a return man. He had a big, I think it was a kick return at one point for a touchdown during his Stanford career. He comes into BYU at 6'1", 190 pounds. So he's not as rocked out as his brother is because, like I said, Bear listed at 6'2", 225. But what Tiger has is he will come into BYU and having shown that he is a very capable wide receiver, had a really, really strong freshman campaign in 2023, 36 receptions for 409 yards and 2 touchdowns. A little bit quieter this past year, just 10 receptions and 67 yards overall in the season. But both years, Stanford struggled mightily under Troy. I think it was back-to-back 3-9 campaigns. And Tiger took until Saturday evening to commit to BYU. I think he wanted to do his due diligence and ultimately decide that it was in his best interest of where he was going to end up. Okay, so it was a punt return for a touchdown. I apologize. It was a 90-yard punt return against Cal Poly. They returned to the house, but he's also got experience kick returns as well. And the nice part is you look at his background. He comes from a strong family. I probably should have mentioned this at the outset. Their older brother, Hank, was a quarterback at Boise State, Louisiana Tech, and then most recently at Wake Forest, where his career ended this past season. This is a really, really athletic family, and they're a football family. That's the thing about this. You bring a guy like Tiger and Barron, they're going to bring a love for the game. You can tell it's evident in the way that they play the game, that they like what they're doing when they're out there on the field. And the other thing about it is I look at what Tiger in particular brings here is he fills out the wide receiver room for BYU because you lose a guy like Keelan Marion. I wanted to say AJ DeBonsa. We're not talking basketball. We're talking about Keelan Marion. You lose him to the transfer portal, and you're obviously wondering, okay, what are you going to do to replace him? Well, you bring in a guy who's got return experience and, quite frankly, might be a better, well-rounded receiver than a guy like Keelan Marion was in Tiger Bachmeier. I love me some Keelan Marion. Let me be very blunt about that. I loved what Keelan brought to the table, but his experience was more as a return man, becoming a wide receiver, whereas I think a guy like Tiger Bachmeier, the return element where he's able to contribute on special teams is in addition to him being a very, very solid wide receiver. That I think is the difference there between these two. But I look at what a guy like Tiger will bring. He's going to come in and compete right away. And that alone, I think, is going to excite Cougar fans because he probably comes in with the whole mindset, okay, I've got these other freshmen over here, guys like a Cody Hagan. You're also probably looking at a guy like Tei Nakua or a Don McKenzie, who are freshmen or redshirt freshmen who are eager to step up and really take control of their future in the BYU football program. Well, in steps a guy in Tiger Bachmeier, who is a junior and has got proven production at the Power 4 level the past 2 seasons. Well, the competition, the stakes got upped significantly for everybody in this room. I'm not saying that guys like a JoJo Phillips is exempted from this. I think Chase Roberts, you can pretty much say that Chase is untouchable. He is the gold standard when it comes to BYU wide receivers, but I really think that BYU has done a really, really good job filling out this room after losing Keelan Marion, because I said it before, I'll say it again. I think currently, if I were to pencil in the 3 starters at wide receiver for BYU, I would go Chase Roberts, JoJo Phillips, and Parker Kingston. Parker, obviously, I would have him in that slot position, and he, like Tiger Bachmeier, has got the return element that will be able to contribute on special teams. But a guy like Tiger cannot be discounted to come in and potentially take away reps from guys, because he did it at Stanford. He showed he's capable of. And the other thing is, he is extremely smart. He graduated in computer science from Stanford University in 2.5 years. And if you know what Stanford's all about, they're all about academics. That's just the one thing that they're all about out there on the farm. And to graduate in not only a very just difficult discipline like computer science, but to do it in essentially 2.5 years, be 8 semesters, rough, give or take. Man, oh no, 9 semesters, excuse me. That's impressive stuff. So my hat goes off to Tiger Bachmeier. I think this is a really, really smart kid who's got a really smart head on his shoulders, and he's going to team up with his brother. And there's a chance, let's say if Bear does win the starting job next year, Tiger could be catching passes from his brother as he finishes up his collegiate career. That's the fun part, and the fun element to all of this is that there's a family element here. And we've seen it across BYU for multiple years, is that a lot of brothers will come to this program. There's a lot of family connections, dads who played at BYU whose sons end up there. Well, the Bachmeier family didn't really have, I think, a natural tie to BYU, but now with Bear and Tiger in the mix, that Bachmeier name is going to be obviously linked with BYU football forever. And that's an exciting prospect here. I look at Tiger's skill set, and it screams to me a guy who is very capable of being a contributing wide receiver for BYU. And a guy like Kalani Sitake has got to be thinking, okay, I just added another piece to the puzzle here. And that obviously should excite you as a Cougar fan, because we've seen time and time again that it seems like every time we feel like BYU finally has, I guess, what we call adequate depth, it seems like something happens that thins that out. And the nice part is, a guy like Tiger Bachmeier, he knows what to expect as he comes in to play for BYU. And he's not going to be expecting, I think, anything more or anything less than what BYU can offer. And that is a top-rate experience, but more importantly, a chance to play at the top level of collegiate football. That's the thing about this, is I really, really like this addition because of the fact that he's already got proven ability, and you don't have to guess and kind of prognosticate what he's going to contribute to BYU. Yeah, you're wondering, okay, is the freshman campaign of what he offered, or is the sophomore more of what we expect? I think BYU's banking on the fact that he's probably slowed up due to some injury concerns this past year, and an offense that was ineffective at Stanford. And a guy like Tiger, when you're playing in a much better offense, that should allow him to have a much bigger impact at the Power 4 level. So I really do like these two additions. I think they're two brothers who, like I said, are football guys through and through. They want to be together. That was part of the recruiting pitch, according to what Pete Thamel reported, that they out there in the portal were kind of looking as a package deal to end up wherever they ended up at their next university. And I think this is going to yield benefits for BYU. I think immediately you can expect you'll see Tiger Bachmeier on the field this year. He wore the number 24 at Stanford, but his recruiting photo from BYU, he's wearing the number 19. We'll see what he ultimately rocks this year when it comes to hitting the field. But I think you can get used to hearing the name Tiger Bachmeier as soon as this season. And a guy like Bear, maybe a year or two off, but the talent is evident. And the family connection, well, BYU likes to talk about welcome to the family when guys sign with the program. I think this is very much just that. Tiger and Bear are here, they're family, and they're looking forward to making an impact and making the Bachmeier name synonymous with BYU football in the coming months and years. And that alone, I think, is an exciting prospect to see for the BYU football program. All right, enough of that. We talked about we talked about Tigers and Bears. What are the chances they can add the Lion to the mix? Well, we're talking about Ryder Lyons and the chances BYU football remains in the mix for him when it comes to recruiting. We'll get into that next as we roll on right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Supply House. Now, Supply House is here for you guys to get you whatever you need when it comes to your trades. Now, I work in media, so I don't necessarily deal with this directly, but I've got brothers who work in the trade. So whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order your products online. The best part is their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with the complete inventory of over 200,000 parts, I don't even restock that many parts, but nonetheless, you have 400 plus top brands as well. You'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House has expert support and industry-leading service. You'll always talk to a real person to get you the answers you need. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trademaster program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every single order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it is your turn to do just that. Join the Trademaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use the promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's the promo code SH5 at supplyhouse.com to get started today. Once again, do it with our friends over at supplyhouse.com. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. If you have not done so already, sign up for the Locked On Cougars Insider Group. Get the inside scoop on all things I'm hearing about BYU sports. Best part is just $4.99, $5, give or take, every single month. And the kicker is you get a 14-day free trial to be a part of the Insider Group. The link is in the show notes below, or reach out to us and via social media or email, and we'll get you squared away. But looking forward to seeing many more of you join us in the Locked On Cougars Insider Group. We've got a really, really fun group and a lot of good conversations going on. So hope you guys will consider joining in the near future. All right, let's talk a little bit about Ryder Lyons. Now, the biggest thing with Ryder Lyons, the most recent intel out of the national media, is he's back to favoring USC. There's a crystal ball from our friends over at 24/7 Sports that indicate that he is favoring going to LA to team up with his brother Walker, who's a tight end for the USC Trojans. There was a stretch there earlier this year that there was a very favorable opinion that BYU was that dark horse that could ultimately land the five-star talent out of Folsom, California. He is ultimately going to go on his official visits coming up next month, and BYU has him slated to visit the weekend of June 20th, last I heard, and that is a big opportunity to make an impression and maybe surge back into the lead for BYU. There's been a big question from a number of you in our insiders group and others who have said, Jake, well, what does Bear Bachmeier mean for the chances of BYU landing a guy like Ryder Lyons? To be frank, it doesn't affect anything because Ryder Lyons is going on a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Now, he's stated he's going for a one-year mission. That's not actually a thing. He's just going to come home after a year. That's his own prerogative. It's his own decision. I'm not going to judge him. The fact he's even going on a mission, I applaud him for that decision because it's not easy for a guy of his caliber to step away from football for any period of time, it feels like. But he's going on a mission, and in essence, he is part of the 2027 recruiting cycle. Bear Bachmeier is your 2026 quarterback, for lack of a better term, if you're the BYU football program, if you're kind of doling out where scholarships go each year. That doesn't affect, I think, BYU's chances of landing a guy like Ryder Lyons. Ryder is his own guy. He's been very clear that he wants to make his own path in college football at BYU or otherwise. He's a very, very talented player. He's kind of built in the same frame as a guy like Bear Bachmeier, who's more of a stout, stocky quarterback, but he's got all the athleticism out there to succeed at the Power 4 level. There's a reason why he's a five-star talent. He's got a rocket arm, really, really good mechanics. The accuracy is all there. He's the perfect fit in BYU system, or really any system. That's what a five-star quarterback is meant to be. It's the type of guy that you build your entire offense around. And BYU would love to have a guy like Ryder Lyons in the program. I got no doubt about that. That talent is absolutely undeniable. And he would be the first five-star quarterback to sign with BYU, I think, since Jake Heaps, if I'm not mistaken. Now, there's some that say Jake was a four-star quarterback when he ultimately signed, but he was the best quarterback in his class when he signed with BYU back in 2010. Now, his career didn't go the way any of us expected. We all know that. But I think what Ryder Lyons brings to the table, it's more than enticing. And if BYU has any chance of landing a talent like him, you do it. You sell the farm, as it were, to get him to Provo. Yes, there's going to be NIL money involved. Yes, there's probably going to have to be some recruiting promises made, whether it's, hey, you're going to have a chance to compete for playing time the second you step on campus, even after your mission. But I wouldn't expect any of that to be being promised anywhere else. I would expect USC or Oregon, who are considered to be two of the favorites to land a guy like Ryder Lyons, they're probably making those same promises. And they've been more than willing to say, yeah, we'll wait for you. We'll let you go on that mission. And yes, we will essentially plan on you being a part of our 2027 recruiting cycle versus 2026, even though he is a part of the 2026 class. So simply put, BYU could cap off an absolutely incredible run with a commitment like Ryder Lyons. And I don't think it slows down anything with regards to if Bear Bachmeier blocks the way for Ryder Lyons. I trust when national media say that a guy like Ryder Lyons is favoring USC, because there is a lot of moving parts when it comes to all this, as you might imagine. And the fact that his brother is already there in LA playing for the Trojans. Yeah, much like Bear and Tiger Bachmeier, it's very easy for a family to say, you know what, we're going to keep it a family thing and we're going to go play at the same university. There are siblings who play at other universities. That's been a thing that happens often, but I can understand totally why a guy like Ryder Lyons would be pulled to USC. The tradition, it's the USC Trojans. I don't think I need to say anything more than it's just the University of Southern California. Now, somebody may say it's the University of Spoiled Children, and I'm not going to disagree with you, but the football tradition there is absolutely insane. And much like BYU, there used to be called halfback U. Speaking of USC, they had a lot of guys win the Heisman Trophy as running backs. They had a lot of good quarterbacks as well. The Matt Leinerts, the Carson Palmers, most recently, you can look at, who am I thinking of? I'm thinking of the Bears quarterback. Man, this is brutal for me. I'm going to Google Bears QB as I'm talking about this. But the thing is, you look at it, Caleb Williams, there you go. Mr. Fingernails himself. If you know that reference, you know what I'm talking about. But the bigger point is they got a strong tradition of quarterbacks, and Lincoln Riley is considered to be a quarterback whisperer. Now, your opinion of Lincoln Riley may vary, but you cannot argue with what USC offers as a quarterback. The fact that they play in the Big Ten, which is considered to be one of the two biggest conferences in college football, that's a draw as well. But I'm thinking of all these different reasons why it might pull him to USC. But BYU is right there in the mix. They got a strong tradition of quarterback play. That's one thing that Bear Bachmeier highlighted, is the fact that BYU's pantheon of quarterbacks and this track record of success. It's unmatched in many respects. BYU can do a lot. And the NIL prowess BYU has brought to bear, that's always going to be an option here for BYU to be a top-notch competitor, because some kids are driven by money. Other kids are driven by playing opportunities. Other guys are driven by what the jersey is. They want to wear a USC jersey. I get all that. But I think the BYU, until they're told they're out of it, they will absolutely stay hot on the heels of a guy like Ryder Lyons, and for good reason. You don't just say, "Oh, USC's in it, we're out." No, that mentality for BYU, it died a long time ago, and it should have died an even longer time ago. BYU has to understand that they are on the same plane, the same level playing field on the recruiting front as the USCs of the world. Yes, the tradition and the name brand recognition, that all exists for those programs, but BYU shouldn't be afraid of offering any kid who has any interest in BYU and compete favorably for their signature, because we just saw them go 11-2 a year ago. How much better could they be with a 5-star quarterback on their roster? I would imagine that would upgrade them even more so. And that's the exciting proposition if you're a Cougar fan. Could they add, like I said, the lion to the tiger and bear? Give the analogy, kind of bringing it full circle here. All right, that's going to do it. As always, thank you for all of your support of the podcast. You guys mean the world to me personally. It's been a really, really fun couple of months here. And crazy thing is the transfer portal, it just keeps giving us content and stories, and it doesn't seem like it's stopping anytime soon. So we will have you covered literally every single day. And if you've not noticed it, we're also looking back at all 100 years of BYU football seasons, ranking them from 100 to 1. We did 198 this past week. We'll get to 97 through, I think, like 93 this week as well. So stay tuned for those on the podcast feeds wherever you catch this podcast as well. But as always, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. And once again, thank you for being everydayers with us right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast.